Hello and welcome to the Two Ace Podcast, the podcast designed to help you manifest your Two Ace mindset. My name is Josh Brooks and my one focus is success through the art of discipline and flow. I hope you enjoy the episode. Now let's get right into it. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, whatever time of day it is you are joining me. I hope you're having a good one. And today I'm joined by Kevin Palmieri, and he is the founder and host of the Next Level University podcast. He believes in the heart-driven, no BS approach to self-improvement and teaching people how to get to the next level of their lives. And honestly, I'm actually so grateful for you being here today, Kevin. Thank you.
Of course. I appreciate it, Josh. I'm excited to chat. You already said you did research, so I always appreciate someone who takes their platform seriously, and it's very clear you do, so I'm excited to see where we go.
Yeah, cool. I actually had Alan on the show last week.
I'm pretty sure Alan told me, and I think he was talking about you, that was his favorite episode he's ever done.
So, oh, really?
He said you asked a lot of very deep questions, and you were super curious to how he actually got to where he was. So yeah. I'm very excited. You're going to see Alan and I are very different people. You'll see that very quickly.
I think I actually listened to the episode. Was it 2 or 3 days ago you recorded it?
I believe so, yes.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah. Without further ado, let's dive into it. So I just want to ask you this initial question. Did you have like a pivotal point of realization when you decided to go from where you were to this journey of, driven?
Yeah, I had a lot of what people would consider external success. I was in the best shape of my life. I was competing in a bodybuilding show. My girlfriend at the time was a model. I had a sports car. I had a high-paying job. I had a new apartment. I had great friends. From the outside looking in, when I was 25, you would assume I was the most successful Kevin possible. But I was miserable. And I was unfulfilled, and I was self-conscious, and I was insecure, and I didn't believe in myself, and I had very low self-worth, and I was just a shell of a man. My girlfriend ended up leaving me, and then I thought to myself, well, I just haven't made enough money yet. If I just go make a boatload of money, all the stuff that I'm feeling internally, all this not enoughness will go away. I spent the next year trying to make as much money as possible. I ended up making 6 figures at 26 with no college degree. And then I ended up sitting on the edge of a bed contemplating suicide the next year because I was still so miserable. I felt so stuck. I felt so broken. And somewhere in there, in between those two things, I had started a podcast that was all about self-awareness. Once I started that podcast, I realized that I didn't know anything about me. And I thought to myself, that's probably not good. And it's probably going to be an unlock for me if I can start practicing self-awareness. So yeah, between 25 and 27, a lot of things in my life changed, and that's really the pivotal experience I had to shift my mindset and my direction.
Got you. So when you did shift your direction, you realized your vision. How did you then ensure that you committed to it every day, every moment of your life? How are you aligning yourself to that full commitment and to your goal?
So transparently, in the beginning, I relied a lot on Alan. I essentially told Alan, I want to win at this podcasting thing. I want to be successful. I want to help people. I want to be financially free. What do we do? And tell me what to do and I'll do it. So in the beginning, it was, I pretty much had a boss, Josh. I just didn't know it. I didn't realize that Alan was kind of my boss, even though I was the founder and all that. I didn't know that. He's led the charge with most of the strategy in terms of how are we going to turn this into a business and all that stuff. What I will say is I never really believed the life I am living today was possible for me. I did not expect 1,800 episodes. I did not expect million listens, $1 million. I did not expect any of that. The one thing that kept me focused on this, that kept me in the race, that kept me in the arena, is I had a deep belief that if I could survive long enough to make this successful, it would be worth it. I didn't always think I could do it, but I had a deep belief that if I could make it, it would be worth it. And that is still the belief I hold on to on days that suck and weeks that are hard and moments that are challenging. If I can make it through this moment, it will be worth it. If I can stay here, it'll be worth it. So a lot of it in the beginning was I had a business partner who had 10 out of 10 self-belief. And when he says, Kev, if we keep going, we'll be successful, it's really hard to quit when the person you're working with is convinced that it's going to work. And almost everything he said is going to work has worked in the past. So I felt very guided by that.
Nice. So I remember in one of the episodes I've listened to you guys talk on, you guys spoke about something, and I think you mentioned that you were going through a period of time where you were like you needed the wins. You couldn't just fail towards success.
Yeah.
So how do you remain consistent despite failure? Because I personally believe that failure is a part of success. It's not the opposite of it. So how do you go about that kind of thing?
Yeah, now it's different. Now failure almost, I won't say it doesn't affect me at all, but now it's almost like this is par for the course. This is what it takes. This is what it is. It's going to be fine. In the very beginning for me, though, I had so much of my identity wrapped up in failure. So my mindset now is this podcast episode with you, I am going to give it everything I have. I want to be authentic, vulnerable, truthful. I want to add value. But it's kind of like practice, where I have a podcast right after this, and it's another practice. I used to think everything was the Super Bowl, everything was the World Cup, everything was the finals. And if I lost that game, I was a loser, and I was a failure. So in the beginning, I probably just used that fear and that anxiety to over prep to make sure that when we had a guest on, I knew everything about that guest. Because if I know everything, I can't really fail. I can make a valuable episode out of that. I did a lot of research on everything I could to give myself more certainty so I didn't feel like I was a failure, even if things went wrong. That was part one. And then part two is I probably played it safe more than I should have. I waited, I don't know, hundreds of episodes before I ever did my first speech. I was hundreds of episodes in before I ever went on another podcast. So I probably overcooked the turkey, for lack of better phrasing. I probably waited too long before I did those things. So that was a big piece of it. And then the third piece is Alan made me do things I was afraid of. So to keep up with Alan, I had to work through this fear in real time pretty consistently, or I was going to get left behind. So there was a lot of necessity to say, Kev, it doesn't really matter if you're afraid you're going to fail. It doesn't really matter if you have a negative association with failure. You have to do it. Because if you don't do it, you're going to get left behind because Alan does not care about failure at all. So it was a mixture of all those things. But what I will say this, Josh, my journey was not good for my mental health. People say get outside of your comfort zone, but they never tell you how far.
Yeah.
I went too far outside of my comfort zone early on, and I was having panic attacks, and it was brutal. So even though I was trying not to do all the stuff that scared me, that I was afraid of failing at once, I still ended up doing it, and my body was not happy about it. My mind was not happy about it.
Yeah. Have you seen the I like to visualize like there's a comfortable zone, there's a fear zone, then there's the growth zone.
Yeah.
Have you seen that?
And then
Yes.
outside of that is the anxiety zone.
Outside of that is the anxiety zone. Is the growth zone not the one that encompasses the whole thing?
No, I don't think so. I think it goes comfort zone, learning zone, growth zone, anxiety zone.
Oh, right, okay.
That's my thought, at least, because I've lived in anxiety for so long. It's just like I'm not a natural entrepreneur. Alan went to business school, and he was the CEO of the companies and the stuff that he did in college. I was not that. I was working at a gas station, and then I was working at a hospital, and I was just doing odd jobs. I didn't understand the amount of pressure that came with being a business owner and all that stuff. So I wasn't really prepared mentally for this. And I've been living in the anxiety zone for a long time at this point.
Sorry, excuse me.
You're good.
So with that, what would you say your biggest fear is, and how have you overcome that? Because by the sounds of it, and I'm the same. Fear and anxiety is a big thing to overcome, and the greatest opportunities do lie on the other side of fear. So how have you overcome your biggest fear? Because that will most likely have led to the biggest opportunity.
Yeah, my biggest, deepest fear, like my core wound, is disappointing others, especially men.
Mm.
Grew up without a dad. My dad abandoned us. There's my core wound right there. I do not want to disappoint men because that just reminds me of not having a dad.
Yeah.
How do you overcome your fear? You kind of experience it. The way I overcame the fear of disappointing others was disappointing others along the way, but just in very, very small bouts. That was probably the thing that did the most beneficial thing for me, was saying, all right, today I'm going to do my best and see what happens. And I kind of let someone down. All right, how do I make up for the fact that I disappointed someone? And it just kind of became that. And it's still to this day, I do prep. I listened to your podcast before I came on because I want to know who I'm talking to. I want to make sure I'm a good fit, and I want to make sure I can actually add value. I want certainty. So that's something I do every day. I look at my calendar and I figure out what am I doing today, and then I research everything to make sure I'm certain. I still do that to this day, 2,800 podcast episodes in, because I want to make sure that I'm not disappointing people. So I can't even tell you I've gotten over that fear. I think that fear is still something I deal with on a daily basis. I just think I have a more positive relationship with it. I'm terrified of planes. I just don't like them. Doesn't make any sense how something that big can fly that fast through the sky.
Yeah.
I don't get it. But I'll be on a plane Sunday because I'm going to a podcast conference. Sometimes you just have to have a moment of courage to try to do the thing that scares you, and then hopefully once you start the process, it's a little bit less scary, but I don't know if it's ever really going to go away.
Yeah. I appreciate the vulnerability there.
Of course.
And just out of curiosity, which episodes did you listen to before you came on?
I listened to, so I didn't listen to the whole thing, to be
Yeah.
very honest. It was I always try to listen to the most recent one, and then I go back and kind of try to pick through to find like a solo episode,
Yeah.
if the person has it, so I can get an idea of who they are and how they talk when they're by themselves. So I have no idea which ones it was. I just literally, I think it was the most recent one, and then I just picked a random one to give a listen to.
Oh, cool. Nice, thanks for that.
Of
Yeah.
course.
So how would you say to someone that's trying to start this journey, they're in the process of developing a vision, or they have a vision, or they might not even have a vision, but they know they don't want to do what they're doing right now, or they don't want to be, stuck in the restrictions of today's society. How would you encourage someone to step outside of that comfort zone, to go towards the growth and anxiety zone, and become, the best version of themselves, become vulnerable and be courageous? Like, how would you inspire someone to actually take that first step?
How would I inspire someone? I would sit them down and say, look, one day you're going to die. And hopefully, when you're on your deathbed, you can look back and you'll have a bunch of dots that you can connect, that you're grateful you have, that allowed you to get to where you are today. If nothing changes, when you do get to that point and you look back, are you going to be excited about what you did? Yes or no? I think we lose sight of that often. And again, I know it's a morbid thing, and maybe that's not the most inspirational thing, but I do think it's the most necessary awareness you can get. There is somebody right now, as I'm saying this, who is losing their life, who thought they had an opportunity tomorrow and they don't. And if you do, it's a really good opportunity for you to try to do something different. But this is the interesting thing. The inspiration wears off. So like after somebody listens to this episode and that part goes away, that inspiration might be gone. You have to understand what you value as a human being. Because if your core values and your core beliefs and your core aspirations are all things that you don't know about yourself yet, it's going to be really hard to get clarity. You're just going to be throwing stuff at the wall hoping that something sticks. But if you understand your core value is family, you love family more than anything. Awesome. Your core beliefs are quality time is the way to help someone the most. Awesome. And your core aspirations are to be more financially free, but still have the freedom to spend time with your family. That is a very clear vision. So that's all kind of wrapped into it. And then something that has changed a lot for me over the last couple of years is I don't really care what somebody's goal is anymore. I care more about what type of lifestyle they are willing to put up with until they accomplish the goal. The goal is awesome, and the goal is the destination, and the goal is the journey, and the goal is inspirational. But 99% of the goal is pursuit of it. So if you want to accomplish blank, but you're not willing to do what it takes every single day to do it, it's disempowering for you to set that goal, most likely. I care now more about what you're willing to do in the process of pursuit than what goal you're actually setting. Setting a goal is not hard. Accomplishing the goal is the hard part. Because a lot of us are setting goals based on what life will be like when we get them. But your goal might be 5 years away. It might be 10 years. It might be 15 years away. Are you willing to do what it takes to get the goal? Are you willing to do what it takes to pursue the goal? And then are you willing to do what it takes to sustain the result once you get it? Those are all very different conversations.
Yeah, nice. Yeah, me and my close friends, actually, we believe in the process over outcome.
Mm.
And we have it pinned in our group chat and stuff. And it's very humbling because, we've all got these aspirations and, where we want to be and stuff. But it is, like you're saying, it is so crucial to just remember to be in the moment, to be present. And the greatest opportunities do lie in the now moment. What can you do now in order to achieve that? But not even that. What can you do now? Full stop. What can you do now? You know what I mean? And I did pick up in the most recent episode that you and Alan did, actually. You talked about the willingness to be a beginner because eventually you'll be the expert. And you talked about how you went from, you're looking pretty big there, to be fair.
I appreciate it.
You went from, I can't remember the numbers exactly, but you went straight back to just doing the bar on bench press. And I can resonate with that as well because I injured my shoulder a few years ago. So I had to go back to sort of rebuilding muscles from the very beginning kind of thing.
Yeah.
So I started off again to just go lower weights and, try and absorb that information and endure that, the mind muscles connection of the smaller weights.
Yeah.
And yeah, like just the willingness to be a beginner in order to seek that growth and, eventually become the expert. So the point I'm trying to get across is outside of the gym, or working out, how else do you pursue being a beginner?
That's a great question. I think my relationship is probably one of the best places to try to stay humble because I feel like I know a lot about relationships, but that doesn't mean I'm practicing everything I know. So in my relationship, one of the things I say most often is, yeah, I know, I just need to get better. I want to be the beginner who I have a relationship and it's amazing. So grateful. I have an awesome wife. But if I ever lose sight of that, I will lose this whole thing. So I try to show up every day as somebody who is humble and ready to learn and willing to learn. And one of the things I always say is I want to learn my wife forever, which to me that is a beginner's mindset. I don't ever want to assume I know everything about her because I don't. Because every time she learns more about herself, I have the opportunity to learn more about her through her new awareness. So I would say that's a really big one. I have the privilege of being on a lot of other podcasts, and I always try to do stuff differently. I mean, yeah, I tell my story depending on what the show is, and sometimes there's a 5-minute version, there's a 10-minute version, there's a 9-minute version, it depends. But I always try to make sure that I go in with the understanding that I don't know what the person's going to ask me, and I want to try to treat this kind of as a beginner. I don't want to assume everything I say is fact because it's not. A lot of it's based on my experience, and that's great, but I want everybody to filter everything I say through their own filter. And I think that's even that's a beginner mindset. I don't want you to take what I say and just run with it. I hope it inspires you. I hope it creates a new awareness. But I'm not right about everything. I've been wrong about a lot of stuff. And there's something I will say in this interview that is just factually incorrect, most likely. And I think that for me, it helps keep me humble. And I think that's a part of a beginner's mindset as well.
Yeah. Humility is really important, and so is self-belief.
Of course.
And wrapping it back into the core idea of this episode is it is self-belief and how to consistently commit to that and building that. Is there any? I know Alan habit tracks, and that's his meta habit. Is there any metrics that you track to ensure self belief is it's being built, self worth being built, humility is being built?
Yeah, it's different now. So I track habits just like Alan. Alan designed my system, so I can't take credit for it. But I track habits. We have the metrics, all that happy jazz. In the very beginning, I would track something called fear chasing. So I would literally give myself a check if I did something that scared me that day. That was something I did for a long time in the beginning, and that was super valuable. A lot of the self belief, self worth, humility redirects and pivots come from Alan and I's conversations. So, yes, we do an episode every day, but we also have the opportunity to meet for meetings and mastermind and talk about business. And we're always trying to learn more about each other. So, a lot of the redirects come from Alan saying, "Hey, what'd you learn today?" And then me going into, well, I had a conversation with someone and I was like triggered in the moment, but then I reflected on it and this is what I came with. I think they had delusionally high self worth. And when somebody around me has delusionally high self worth, I dial mine down because I don't want to go to their end. And then that becomes a conversation of, oh, do I do that too? Well, no, I think I do the opposite. And then it becomes this beautiful lesson that we both get to share together. So there probably aren't as many proactive measurements or metrics for self belief, self worth, and humility that show up on paper. A lot of them are just from deep conversations that I get to have. Maybe I track the amount of podcast episodes I've done. So that helps me with self belief. I mean, you've done this 2,900 times. You probably should believe in yourself a little bit. I still probably don't believe in myself as much as I should, but I see that number every day and that makes me feel really good. So I think that's probably the best metric. But so many of it comes from just deep conversations that no human ever gets to see. I've had thousands and thousands of hours of deep talks with Alan. Some of them I don't remember. Some of them have changed my life more than I can even understand. And a lot of them are yet to happen. But that's where so much of the growth comes from. It's just deep conversations, learning about myself. When you learn about you learn about everything. It just doesn't seem like it.
Yeah, I think I'm definitely going to start doing that. The check with the fear thing.
Yeah, I love it.
Doing something that you're scared of. Boom.
Yeah.
Growth.
Yeah.
Like that is literally the pursuit of the anxiety zone.
It
And
feels good. It feels good when you give yourself a check.
yeah,
It's
it
just
does.
like, oh, or you go out of your way to do it. What's an example? I don't like talking to people on the phone, believe it or not. I just don't. I'd rather talk to somebody face to face on video than on the phone. But for a while, I had to cancel a gym membership. And canceling a gym membership is it's just terrible. It's a whole thing. You got to jump through these hoops, whatever. I kept putting it off and I kept putting it off. When I called the gym and canceled it, and I got to give myself a check mark for do something that makes you nervous or is outside of your comfort zone, it felt really, really good, for sure.
Nice. Okay, you mentioned delusion as well,
Mm.
which I want to just briefly touch on. What do you think of the statement? Delusion enhances vision.
I think it it sounds really good on a bumper sticker, but if it enhances vision, it also enhances all the pain that comes with being delusional. It's kind of like Steve Jobs's reality distortion field. It's like, yeah, and there's visionaries that have that, but oftentimes that delusion gets also put on people in terms of the way you treat them, your expectations of them. So I think delusion can be good, but it's really hard for delusion to be good when you're also passing that delusion on to other people.
Yeah, yeah, I like that. Yeah. So in essence, delusion to an extent. You can't. Are you saying that there's a level of delusion that's like, all right, yeah, you've got the idea of there's no one, no one's really thinking of that. You're trying to escape something, but also you can't be delusional to the extent that you're not going to run the world in 3 seconds, kind of thing. Do
Yeah,
you know
I
what I'm
think
trying to say?
you can take delusion too far. It's like if you're 10 out of 10 delusional for too long, you're not going to make any progress towards a meaningful goal because you're just inaccurate.
Yeah.
But if you feel like, I could be one of the best bodybuilders in the world, and then you commit to eating well and exercising every day and doing mobility, you're probably going to be better off than you were if you didn't believe you could be a really good bodybuilder.
Yeah. So it's like setting realistic goals with an optimistic outlook.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But the delusion, like you said, it's like, imagine if I said I can be the most successful podcaster in the world and I just have to show up. I don't really have to do any work. I'll just do like one episode a week. I'm not going to prep for it. I won't work on my speaking. It'll work out. No. That delusion is going to paint me into a corner that I probably don't want to be in. But this is the interesting thing. The delusion goes both ways. There are some people who are really good at something that are delusional in thinking that they're not. And that's not good either. Unless it's in a constructive amount where maybe you use that anxiety to over prep and do that. So just like anything, I think there is a constructive amount, and then I think there is a destructive amount that seems empowering, but it's actually disempowering. It's personal to the human being, probably.
Yeah, got you. Thank you for that. So what do you think of like the opportunity cycle? So allowing momentum to keep up without burning out. Because I don't know about you, but I'm a numbers guy. I like graphs especially, and one of my favorite graphs is the diminishing returns graph. I don't know. Do you know what that looks like?
Mhm.
Yeah, yeah. So you got the cycle up here. I mean the line goes up, and then it reaches a point, and then it's effort and output. It reaches a certain level of output and effort that there's no point in doing any more because
Yep.
you've reached it. So how do you personally and in business allow for momentum to continue without burning out, without reaching that diminishing returns?
We do burn out. Uh, I won't say weekly, but we burn out a lot. And the thought is if I can survive Monday through Saturday, Sunday's a rest and recovery day anyway. So it's not like I'm going to be working. So we're going to try to leave it on the court Monday through Saturday. I don't know if we've gotten to the point where we're at the diminishing returns because we're still doing it at a high enough level and we have the opportunity to prioritize things fluidly, not fluently. Fluidly, we're able to say, all right, we're going to take this department and we're going to put it in coast mode and we're not going to focus on it anymore. We're actually going to take that focus and put it somewhere else. So I don't know. It's a really hard thing to answer because we are getting burnt out pretty much every week, but that is what our journey requires of us. It just is. It's not something I'm trying to avoid necessarily. Alan's getting way more burnt out than I am because he's more productive than I am. He serves more humans than I do. I do a lot of other stuff behind the scenes. So I don't even know if I would have a good answer for that, Josh, honestly. I think there's two different ways to look at burnout. It's either what you're doing is just misaligned and unsustainable, or what you're doing is increasing faster than your current competency. And you need to slow down on a Sunday, and then by Monday, you're ready to go again. But I think that really, really depends on the person. So I don't know if I have like an eloquent answer to that because I am very guilty of burning out very often. It's just a matter of that's kind of what it takes for us. I'm a bodybuilder. So it's like, you're going to tell me you don't get burnt out bodybuilding? Of course you do. But that's par for the course, and that's what you're signing up for. I'm not saying that's what you should be doing out there, whether you're watching or listening. If you're getting burnt out, I would revisit your total productive output and just be honest with yourself. Sustainability is more important than day-to-day progress. because sustainability dictates day-to-day progress. So if you're having 120% day, 120% day, 120% day, and then 50 or 40% days, you're not winning.
Yeah.
But if you're having an 80%, an 80%, an 80%, a 90%, an 80%, a 60%, and then a 30%, it's pretty darn good. That's pretty darn good. So I would say focus more on that than the 120% days. And then eventually you get to the point where your 70% is your old 100%. So you're actually improving. It just doesn't feel like it.
Nice. I think you answered that question pretty perfectly, to be honest, because it was kind of a catch-22 question, really, because if you're not burning out, are you really achieving that growth and anxiety zone?
Nice. See, I had that moment of like,
Got
I
it.
don't know. I don't know if I have a good answer for this, Josh. I'm in trouble.
Yeah. This is audio only for now, by the way.
Okay. If you're listening, that's what I'll say. Not watching, if you're listening.
Yeah. So how in your episodes, how do you ensure that the audience has a commitment to their call to action? So for this episode, I'd like to believe the call to action would be to, if you don't already start tracking your habits, is to start doing that and practicing self-belief. You know, if it's affirmations, if it's just allowing yourself to just believe, set yourself a small goal and doing it and practice building that self-trust within you. How do you ensure a call to action is actually done by your audience? Not that you can go to their door and be like, "Hey, did you do it?" But
Yeah. Honestly, we don't as much as we used to.
Yeah.
It's been a very interesting journey because in the beginning, I was just having cool conversations with cool people, and it wasn't about the listener really. But then when we started really taking it seriously, I did not care about learning from the guest at all. I wanted to get the best points out of the guest for the audience. Then as we started doing solo episodes and just stopped having guests completely, I wanted to be the one who had all the answers. And then that has since shifted to, like I told you at the beginning, if I can say one thing that helps you raise your awareness, I did exactly what I intend to do, and what you do with that awareness is up to you. I don't want to be the guy who tells people what to do. I don't think that's my space anymore. I don't think that's my place. I don't think that's my job. I think it's more, if I can create some sort of opportunity for you to grow, that's going to be better anyway. In some episodes where we're super fired up, I'll do like a takeaway, and it'll just be, based on what we talked about today, I think the best thing for all of us would be to do blank, 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 blank. But it's not just the audience. I got to do the shit too. If I'm not doing it, then this is not working. If I'm just telling you what to do and I'm not working on my own stuff, this is all empty and it's meaningless and it's never going to work. So yeah, we've moved away from that in a lot of ways as we've grown, hopefully as leaders. And the beautiful thing is we're very connected to our community. So yeah, I'm not going to go to their door and say, "Hey, did you do it?" But when somebody reaches out, I have a really good idea whether or not they did do it. And then we can have a conversation from there. That's one of the benefits of having such a tight-knit community like we do, is there's a lot of vulnerability. So when somebody's struggling, they reach out. And when they're reaching out, you can help them that way.
All right, thank you.
Mhm.
So with that in mind, what you say that's not really what your personal call to action is. You don't, you're not the person to tell other people what to do. What do you believe is your, what gives you that feeling of belonging? What gives you that feeling of, purpose?
My purpose is to be the type of person that I needed at my lowest point. That is what I'm here to do. I'm not here to be a podcaster. I'm not here to be a speaker. Those are the vehicles.
Respect
Podcasting wasn't even here when I was born. So it's not like I was born to podcast. It didn't even exist yet. I am here to be the type of person that I needed. And the type of person that I needed wouldn't tell me what to do. They wouldn't say, "Kev, you need to do this. This is what you need to do to be successful." They would create an opportunity for me to have a new awareness to then look at my life and then figure out, am I doing the things I need to do based on what I know? So that really is, awareness was my biggest thing. I didn't know myself. I didn't know who Kevin was. I didn't know why Kevin did the things that he did, why he didn't do the things that he didn't do. And when that became the unlock for me, that made my life infinitely better. And honestly, I think one of the reasons I don't necessarily want to be the person to tell people what to do is I've been told a lot of the wrong stuff to do. And I would much rather somebody make their own decision based on a new, higher, accurate awareness than what I think is best for them. So I would say it's that. And one of the things I'm focused on is I'm focused on being a relatable human. I never resonated with people like Alan in the beginning. Because it was like, Alan, I know you don't get me. I know you have 10 out of 10 self-belief, and you don't know what it's like to not believe in yourself. How can you actually help me? You can't. I know what it's like not to believe in myself, so I can help people that don't believe in themselves. So that's a very important piece for me is I don't have to have all the answers. I just have to admit when I don't have an answer, because that's what the type of person that I want to be would do.
Got you. So when you don't have that answer that you're looking for, or that someone else is looking for, you are then reverted back to the beginning stage again, and you're beginning seeking knowledge.
Yeah. It's just a humble place of, honestly, I'm not sure what the best move is. I don't know. Honestly, based on my awareness, this is what I've seen, this is what I've experienced, but I cannot effectively lead in this moment. And yeah, it's very much, let me know what you choose and why you chose it. And then now that'll go into the repertoire and I'll be able to use that later. But some episodes I literally say, I don't even know if there's a takeaway. Based on what we talked about today, this might just be one of those deep, hyper-conscious episodes where maybe you think a little bit differently. There might not be bullet points. Here are the 3 steps. It might just be, we had a deep conversation and we went places. But it's hard. It's hard to equate that to something.
Yeah, that's what I strive for. I think that, diving deep into the reasons behind things, what goes on not only behind like the cognitive aspects of how people are thinking, but how like even like the nanoscale, why is that the case though?
Yeah.
And with that in mind, what do you think of leverage? Are you a risky guy? You're a conservative guy?
I avoid risk like it's my job. Yeah, I am very risk averse. Now less than ever. And I am fairly reckless with some things, but no, I'm certainty driven. I'm a very, very certainty driven human being, which is weird because I funded us for the first couple of years on credit cards essentially. And it was just like, we'll figure it out eventually. So that wasn't super risk averse, but I'm a very risk averse human being naturally.
Nice. So there's a quote that's from one of your previous episodes, and that's that you are a byproduct of the value you provide, your beliefs and your goals. How do you go about that in your day-to-day lives?
Who said that, Alan or me?
It's kind of like a mismatch of both of you.
Okay.
You both said it at one point.
Okay.
But I think Alan may have said it, but you were also in the conversation, kind of thing. Yeah. What's you guys?
What was it again? Can you repeat it? Sorry, I interrupted you.
You are a byproduct of the value you provide, your beliefs and your goals.
Yeah, I mean, we live in a very strange time where it's very easy to be entitled and say, I want X result. Well, the value you provide to the world is going to dictate the results that you get. That just is the way it is. If you add more value than someone else, you'll most likely make more money because of it. The goals dictate what you say, do, think, believe, what you don't do, all of that stuff. I mean, that is the roadmap for how we end up where we end up. And we talked about goals in the beginning. And then the beliefs are what dictate what alignment means to you. We've had a lot of opportunities over the last 7 years to do things that are outside of alignment. What does that mean? It's outside of what I believe is honest or what I believe is truthful or what I believe is moral or ethical or whatever it is. So your beliefs are what you think about the world, what you think about yourself, what you think is right, what you think is wrong. And yeah, you are kind of the byproduct of all of those things together, because ultimately you're the byproduct of where you're trying to go. You're the byproduct of how you're trying to get there. And you're the byproduct of how much value you can add in the world, because your value that you add is going to dictate a lot of your results, especially financial results. So I would say, yeah, based on that, it's just kind of like it's just a tripod. It's just a tripod that ultimately takes you to where you're trying to get to.
Yeah. So in essence, it's like if you provide value for a prolonged period of time, eventually you will be rewarded from it.
If you also have the strategy around how to do it, yes.
And that I love how you said that. I was literally about to ask you about strategy. Yeah. So strategy. I've just got the word strategy written down here. Go.
Okay.
Fire away strategy. What are your thoughts on strategy? How do you use your logic? How do you have these goals and you want to achieve them,
Yeah.
but there's X, Y, Z in the way. In order to get from X to Z, you need to have the logic, a strategy to get there. How do you use strategy to your advantage?
I learned a lot. Alan's an engineer, so Alan reverse engineers everything. I learned a lot about strategy from Alan, but the way I have simplified it for myself, because I don't get it like he does, is I think of it as a recipe.
Hmm.
So when I'm making something and I don't know how to make it, I either do research and find someone who does know how to make it, or I just test it out and say, all right, let me put the oven on 400 for 15 minutes. And then I see what happens. And then if it goes right, I figure out the next step. And then eventually it becomes this loop of if then, result. The hard part is long before you have the strategy, you have to start trying stuff. The only way to really figure out the strategy is just to try stuff that doesn't work and then reflect. So for us, really what we have as a system is we prep, we rep, we reflect, and then we perfect. So prep is do the research. What do I know about said thing? Not much. All right, cool. Let me do more research and do it. Okay, cool. Rep is do the actual thing. Put the food in the oven, give the speech, whatever it is. Try to get the client. Awesome. Reflect is what went right, what went wrong, what could I have done better, what did I do really well? Awesome. And then perfect is take all of that feedback and then put it into the next rep. So now everything we do for multiple reasons. There are very few things that we do that aren't for a greater reason. It's not, we don't do a podcast episode every day because we want to. That's a strategy. I want to add more value than anybody else. So if Josh comes up with an 8th day of the week, Josh Day, we're going to have to do another episode because I'm doing one every day till the end of time. Right? So it's not just I want to do an episode every day. It's I want to add more value than anybody else can. I want to get really good at podcasting. What's a way to get really good at something? Do it more than anybody else. Well, there's 7 days a week. I'm going to do it every day. Awesome. Right? So that's that. It also gives me an opportunity to hear myself speak more often because I can review every single episode that we do. Awesome. So there's so many reasons that go under that. So yeah, for most of my life, I just kind of went with the flow and I went with what felt right. Now it's more, I try to reflect a lot on what has worked and what hasn't worked. I think the hard thing about strategy is it takes time for it to catch up. You could have the right strategy, but the laggard on the right strategy might be a month, 2 months, 6 months, a year. It's really hard to know. So without reflection, I think it's really hard to understand whether or not a strategy is actually paying off. So I think it's about the reps. It's putting in a lot of reps and then figuring out, did that go the way I thought it was? If so, why? If not, why? And then trying again. Rinse and repeat that cycle forever. And then seek outside counsel. There are people that know better than you do currently. And that's awesome because hopefully they can help you skip steps. So if you're struggling with strategy, if you're listening and you're struggling with strategy, reach out to someone who has the results you want because they most likely have a better idea of the strategy, at least. Maybe not the whole thing.
Yeah, nice one. Thank you for that. That's really yeah, that was really valuable. I so that's kind of like the scientific approach, the scientific
Yep.
methodology to it.
Yep.
And sort of you mentioned the if then, if then, if then. That's very algorithmic as well, which I appreciate that.
I got that from
approach to
Alan,
it.
Josh. I'll let you guess where I got that one from. That one's from Alan for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, I really like that. So how do you, with that in mind, with the experimental and the algorithmic approach, and you mentioned flow as well. I just wanted to ask you about. I asked Alan this as well. So how do you lay out your flow dojo? If you've heard that expression before,
I've never heard that expression
have you
before.
not?
Can you? Yeah, can you
It's
explain?
so it's originated from Mihai Csikszentmihalyi, and I
Yep.
learned it from the Flow Research Collective. Um, and I'm sure you know what flow state is. Yeah, hyper focus. So it's obviously the state where time becomes irrelevant and you're able to just dedicate that time and that purpose for that work that you're doing right
Mm.
now. And a flow dojo is your environment. It's your desk basically, or your life, your opportunity, just your environment, your internal and external environment. How do you optimize that to ensure
Great question.
flow? Right.
I my mess, my desk is an absolute mess. So like my office is not at all optimized for flow. It is a disaster. I'm very disorganized. I kind of like it. So maybe that is optimized for flow. Maybe it's just different than somebody else would optimize it. It's very important for me that I have hyper awareness of where I am in the day and then how the rest of the day will progress. Because if I know I have an hour with you, I don't have to worry about anything for the hour. I'm not worried about. This would be the best answer I could give. I make sure there are as few open loops in my day as humanly possible. So I've already answered all my emails. I've already answered all my WhatsApp messages. I've already talked to my wife today. The cats are already fed. I have water. I don't have to leave this office unless I have to go to the bathroom, but I use the bathroom before this, so I don't have to. It's really, I am making sure that there are no distractions. And transparently, Josh, it's way easier for me to hit flow as a guest because I don't have to worry about the time.
Yeah.
When I'm with Alan, it's very hard for me to hit flow when we're doing an episode because I am producing the episode. I am the host. I have to make sure I know what episode we're doing. I have to make sure we stay on time. I have to make sure we're adding value. Sometimes I feel the extra responsibility of that. So it's been hard, especially with guests, for me to hit flow because Alan is so in flow that he has no idea what time it is.
Yeah.
So now that I do it, and we do it this way and we do solos, I just have to make sure that there is few open loops as possible. It can't be, oh, I got to make sure I send that email after this pod. I can't. Because if I have that, that's what I'm going to be thinking of. I need to be present. So yeah, it's that. There are as few open loops in my day as humanly possible. I've already gone to the gym. I've already meal prepped. I already know what I'm having for dinner. All of that is already done in my head, so I can be here with Josh and I don't have to worry about anything else.
Nice. Yeah, and literally taking the word distraction, if you remove the first few letters, it becomes traction, and then it becomes action. So, it's right there. You remove
Yeah.
the distraction, you get action, don't you? And with that in mind, we are coming to the end of it.
I hate that. I hate that, Josh.
No, you love it. You love it. With that in mind, what briefly would you say is the best as from your position, talking to young entrepreneurs out there? How would you, in just a few sentences or just a few words, how would you best say, or how would you portray the action of ensuring they consistently commit to their self-belief?
Man, I would try to make it part of your identity. You
Yeah.
are the type of person that does stuff that scares you because you know eventually you will be grateful that you did. That. You make it
Thank
part
you.
of your identity. You're very welcome. Great question.
Yeah, that was beautiful. And just to wrap things up, what is your definition of success?
To be the most healthy, wealthy, in love, fulfilled version of myself. That is my new definition of success. If you said you have to break it down even simpler, fulfillment. Fulfillment is success to me.
Cool. Thank you for that. And thank you for joining me today. It has been a pleasure. Yeah, I really appreciate it.
Likewise, I appreciate the research. I appreciate the deep questions. I appreciate all the stuff. You're a wonderful host, and your audience is lucky to have somebody like you at the helm.
Thank you.
You're very welcome.
Before I leave you guys today, I just want to say thank you very much for joining me. And if you haven't already extracted all the value you can for this, then definitely go back over it. And I recommend doing that for every episode that you can. Just get a pen and paper out and just make some notes, just put in, even if you write just one word down per episode, you're still going to be able to retain more information than if you were just listening to it. These types of episodes are crucial. I'm speaking to these people that are successful, and if you're like me, if you want to be wanting to be successful, and I assume that you are because you're listening to the podcast. If you're wanting to be successful and you're striving for these goals, striving for these realistic goals through an optimistic outlook, as me and Kevin said, then definitely, why wouldn't you? Why wouldn't you start taking notes? And yeah, thank you again. Thank you for his time. Thank you for your opportunity. I've been your host, Josh. 2 Ace, 1 Focus.